Welcome in to the Longhorn live stream post-game show. I'm Bobby Burton alongside Rod Babers, sponsored by our friends Flight, the next generation of light beer from our friends over at Yuengling and Faust Distributing. Rod, 51-3, kind of a thorough butt whipping. There was a lull, though, in that second quarter into the third quarter that Texas had to overcome. Arch Manning threw a couple of interceptions. There are all things that we can nitpick, but I tell you what we can't, and that's a performance of Jaden Blue, the running back for the University of Texas. Had a career night tonight. 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns rushing, 1 touchdown receiving. Just a tremendous performance after he sits a week ago for UTSA. But our man Jaden Blue clearly worth a couple of congratulations and pats on the back tonight, having a good game. Arch Manning, clearly the story. We talked about it in the pregame, Rod. We felt like it was the most anticipated debut in Texas football history from a quarterback. What does he do? The first drive, he did the same thing that Quinn Ewers did in his first drive against UL Monroe 3 years ago. He throws an interception.
Yeah.
Right? Got to get it out of your system. Overall, Longhorns, though, dominating victory. The defense decided they wanted none of that in the third quarter after getting ran on pretty hard in the second quarter. Rod, your take on the situation and the win tonight. Tell folks what you told me just before we went on the air. It was a thorough
butt whipping. I'll just say butt whipping and keep it PG for the kids who are listening. I mean, that's what I love about this team, right? Is that they just beat ULM 51-3, and there are a bunch of different things that we could bring up that they can be coached up on, that they can get better at. And Arch Manning, there were growing pains. I remember the first thing I said this week on my show about Arch. I said, "Listen, guys, the 5 touchdowns and 29 plays was amazing, but there will be growing pains. It's just and by the way, these are necessary lessons that he's got to learn." And that will make him better, that he'll go back to the film room, he'll digest it, he'll process it, and he'll be better in his next start. Now, we'll talk about when that next start's going to be. We don't know. But he'll be better as a player once he gets those plays and once he gets those lessons and those growing pains out of the way. And so I expect it to happen. Some people are disappointed because their expectations were really high after the 5 touchdown performance and just 29 plays and scoring 2 touchdowns in his first 3 plays. But guys, this is exactly how it is supposed to go. For Arch, you saw the flashes, all right, and then you saw some of the inexperience this show as a player, and that's okay because that's what young players do. They're kind of like roller coasters, man. You get the highs and then you get some of the lows. And I think with Arch, the highs are just giving you their previews of what he's capable of when he develops the baseline. And then probably for him as a prodigy, it'll come sooner rather than later. His improvement, if he starts, Mississippi State, which we'll talk about, it's a different discussion for a different day. Its improvement from start 1 to start 2 is going to be exponential. It's going to be a huge leap, in my opinion, in terms of his pocket presence, in terms of he forced some things, right? That first interception, he wanted it really badly because Jaden Blue's wide open on the wheel route on the backside. Yep. And we know he gets deep into progressions because Sark even said that, but he really wanted that throw. And so what that told me was that in practice, Sark, that was part of the script, and that throw was open all the time, and that's what he wanted. And Sark probably told him that's likely to be open. But as Sark also says, and Shano says it better than Sark does, they say it as very similar sentiment they echo. Be coachable, don't be a robot. I mean, in that moment, that wasn't open. I mean, there were other things that are open, and that Jaden Blue pass was open. So that's just growing pain. So I like what I saw from Arch because I expected to see some struggles. Some Longhorn fans expected him to kind of breeze through the ULM game. No, ULM had some players, and they made some plays, and Arch had some lapses in judgment as a quarterback, but that's going to happen because he's a young quarterback. What I really liked was, and I told you guys that he was going to bring the verticality back in the offense. I didn't expect 8 deep balls in the first half. Now I did not expect. I knew they would throw it a little bit deeper just because he holds on to the ball a little bit longer and he likes to get deeper into progressions. 8 deep shots. Now I would like to know if that's Sark dialing those up or if that's Arch wanting to throw the deep shots within the play. I'm not sure which one it is, but hell, he threw a lot of deep balls, and I think he's got to work on his chemistry with the running backs. Him and Jaden Blue can get on the same page. That wheel route, they threw that thing like 3 times, and it was open, and they could never really connect on it. So yeah, man, I love that there's so much to work on with this team and with Art. He's a microcosm of the team, in my opinion. The ceiling is extremely high. He's their number 1 team in the country. He's the best backup quarterback in the country, probably can start for 80% of the teams out there. And yet, when you look at the film, you go, man, he could be so much better, actually. He could be a whole lot better. And I think that's the team in a nutshell to me. Special teams has yet to make a momentum-snatching play. I think that's going to happen. The defense, some of the run fits were a little off in that second quarter. That's something the defense worked with. Their eyes, the undisciplined eyes, they got some guys free on some run action because the eyes of the defenders were in the backfield. That's something else you can work on defense. I expected a shutout. They gave up 3 points, but I think ultimately the defense is still playing at a really high level. So to me, the ceiling of the team is just still extremely high because of the depth overall and the talent overall.
I could not agree more on some of your comments there about Arch. Matt, 15 of 29, I believe, our producer. If you don't mind putting that stat sheet back up against Arch, I'll go over those. 15 of 29 for Arch on the night, 52%, 207 yards, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. One of those interceptions on a tip pass that glanced off of Jaden Blue's hand where he came in a little hot. Yep. I want to talk about that. I expected Sark to do with Arch a little bit what he's done with Quinn in the past. Give him a couple of tosses to the outside that are kind of easy. Give him a couple of those types of things that really help him get into the game. No. Sark said, we're going to drop you back and we're going to let you chunk it. And so we wondered a little bit, Rod, about how different Sark's game plan might be with Arch Manning versus Quinn Ewers. I think that it's kind of clear they went for the throat a little bit with Arch Manning compared to Quinn a little bit more. I think that Arch is going to have to learn to take a little bit off the ball at times and get into this short rhythm. Sometimes get him on those passes. But all in all, what are you going to argue about when you win 51-3? Over a team that's 2-0, by the way. It's not like they're 0-2 and not can't even get it going.
And their defense wasn't terrible, guys. I'm sure Tony would get his thought. That defense actually was making some plays early on. Texas just obviously was able to separate, but that wasn't a horrible defense. That wasn't a terrible defense ULM has.
Tony Hills, welcome to the show, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. No, hey, what's up, Rod? Hey, listen, absolutely, man. Look, when you look at this game, the one thing that I will say is that I was impressed with ULM's defensive front and the amount of pressure that they were able to get on Quinn early. The offensive line was very leaky today. That's the word that I'm going to use a lot in the segment today. They were very leaky. Did they take care of business? Absolutely, as they should. They're the better athletes. They're the bigger bodies, right? I get it. But if you thought that ULM was just going to come in and lie down, they didn't. I know the score says one thing at the end of the day. I mean, that's just Texas being Texas and making those plays. But if you watched the game within the trenches, they were getting after it. They were getting pressures. They had I think they gave up a sack today for sure. I know they gave up a couple of knockdowns. So it wasn't just everything being just squeaky clean. Now, they did on the big plays that they had with Archie, they did, create that pocket, open some things up to allow him to have time to make those deep passes down the field, which obviously you see the athleticism of Texas and the speed, right? Bonds had a couple of them. Golden had a couple of them. Wingo had a couple of them. So all in all, our guy Helm had his his fair share of success today as well, Rod. So I mean, at the end of the day, I like the challenge that the defensive front gave Texas, and I know that when they go back to the film room, Coach Flood is going to have a lot to coach up with these guys today.
A lot of different things going on in this game. We got to talk a little bit about Jaden Blue and his night tonight too. Hats off to the young man out of Klein Kane and his offensive output when they needed it in the third quarter to kind of get the game back going in the right direction. after they had lost some momentum after jumping out to a 28-0 lead. They leaned on Jaden Blue, 66 66-yard drive, of which Jaden Blue had 63 of it, I believe, in yardage, all on the ground. He really had a great game. Maybe his best game as a Longhorn overall. Certainly, I think maybe the most complete game of his career. Had a couple of really nice blitz pickups as well. 25 carries, 120 yards. Rod and Tony, one of the things I'm worried about with Jaden Blue is he a running back that could handle 20-plus carries in a game? He's not really built like that kind of guy, right? But neither was a Jamal Charles necessarily. Jaden Blue getting 25 is a little surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, when you look at the program that Texas has put together from the strength and conditioning aspect, I mean, you see it a lot of times on the Instagram feeds and things like that. When you look at his body, you might not think that he's able to tote the rock, but you got to also look at the type of ways that he carried the ball, right? So we had some swing passes, right? We didn't just have a lot of just straight downhill running type of situations. I think what you're starting to see with Jaden, and obviously let's look at it from this perspective too. I mean, he did have a week off last week too, so he's a fresh body. He's ready to get in there and get something going. I think that with the rotational aspect that Texas has, I don't see why he won't be able to carry the ball about 20 times. I think 20 is the limit. I know he had 25 today, but I think 20 is the limit if you're going to continue to have that workload. But look, we got to look at it from this perspective too, Bobby. The fact that Arch was going to open up the defense the way that he did with the deep ball, it backs the linebackers and the safeties up. So a lot of times Blue wasn't seeing contact until he was getting to the to the linebacker level, right? So if you're gonna be able to do that continuously, and I know everybody's excited about us getting Quinn back. Listen, from what I saw from Arch, and I know we're talking about Blue, but this is kind of like a whole segment situation. From what I saw from Arch, I saw what I needed to see. I saw a quarterback that has a big arm, that has big talent, still has to learn how to fill the game. But I mean, he's the quarterback of the future. We know that. When we get Quinn back, it's all systems firing on all levels. And I think that creates a defense, because if you look at it, we took a lot of big shots tonight, which is great, but we didn't even really work the middle of the field. That's going to help Jaden Blue, because now it opens up the defenses from at a horizontal level. When you start getting linebackers to play off depth, to play a little wider, that allows the line to go in, do what they need to do, open up holes, and now you have even bigger room. So he might touch the ball 22 times in that Oklahoma game coming up, or the Mississippi State game.
To Tony's point, though, I think Sark tried to actually take advantage of those linebackers and them being occupied, right, with the passing game opening up, because they tried that wheel route like 3 or 4 times, man, for Jaden Blue, and they just couldn't hit it. How about this, though? Jaden Blue had 7 targets, guys. So he had 25 rushes. He had 7 targets in the game. So that's 32 opportunities where Sark was trying to get Jaden Blue the football. So he knew it, to Tia's point, he knew he was going to be fresh. I did not see that coming. 32 overall opportunities for him rushing, between the rushing and the targets. And like I said, I think half of those missed targets were on that damn wheel route that they kept trying to hit him on. And think about this. So we know that basically Arch had 14 incompletions. What was he, 15 or 29?
Yeah, 15 and 29.
Incompletions. Guys, damn near half of those to Jaden Blue. No, serious. Like,
he was 1 of 7 to Jaden Blue.
Yeah.
Sark deliberately was trying to get Jaden Blue the rock. So I don't know what that's about. I actually didn't think Jaden Blue needed to show that much. I was trying at the end of the watch with us, Bobby, and Teals, I was begging him to take him out. I'm like, it's Belton Gardner time, man. Where's Colin Page? Put him in. We've seen enough. They still left him in there. And this is, Bobby, you brought up that drive in the third quarter. That was at 66 yards. And it was all Jaden Blue. He was 63, 64 to 66 yards. That was when I think, and Teals, you brought up the leaky O-line early on. That Sark definitely had to talk with that O-line. And he was like, hey, we want to go out there and play some bully ball. We want to show we can do it. If we can't do it against ULM, we ain't going to be able to do it against anybody. They're a decent defensive front. They're not, they're not trash. These guys are very capable and competent, but we are more talented. We got more mass. We're stronger. We're bigger. We should be able to go out there. If we intentionally just want to play bully ball against them, I need y'all to show me y'all can do that. All right. And that's basically what they did on that drive. It was a bully ball drive. with Jaden Blue. And I think that was for confidence and T. Hills and them saying, hey, we want to set our mind to something as an O-line. Can we accomplish this? And they did it.
That part, right? You took the words right out of my mouth. At the end of the day, man, you can get enamored with that deep ball, especially when you're connecting. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about the offensive line, you got to let them do what they want to do. And that was the reason why you were able to see, that Jaden Blue drive is what I call it, the 63 yards. Now you got to let the brother finish now. You got to let the brother finish on that, man. But you know what? That's the locker room that they have. They all cheer for each other. I mean, we saw when Wingo scored, when the young brother Nibley scored, how everybody was cheering and for him and everything. But yeah, they went out there and established dominance. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you're throwing the ball 30, 40 times, a game, which that wasn't the case. But if you are doing that, right, as an offensive lineman, you're playing on your heels a little bit, which will cause some of that leakiness. But when you're pounding the rock, you're pounding the rock. What happens is it slows those rushers down, because now they're having to, strain and have all of this energy to be able to stop the run, and you have all this weight leaning on them. So now when we get down to the passing game in the third and fourth quarter, what tends to happen is you see the defensive linemen, their legs get tired, they start having their hands on their hips, they're bending over, they're tapping the head, right? Because that's a lot to be able to take on. But if we're only in a NASCAR type of situation where we're just slinging this thing all over the field, you're going to have some leakiness, right? It's kind of like a basketball player taking jump shots, right? If you keep shooting enough, you're going to hit something. And that's what happens to defensive linemen from time to time when you stay in that pass protection aspect. But I like the fact that Sark was able to sit down and say, you know what, hey, let me take a little pressure off of Arch. Let me take some pressure off this line a little bit, and let's let these guys go up there and do what they do. And they answered the bell, right? So that lets you know that's important for them to do that.
Yeah. Your quarterback goes 15 for 29, yet you score 51 points.
Deep ball, man.
When we talk about an offense that's potent and can beat you a number of different ways, look at these long. I asked Matt behind the scenes here to push up our stats on receivers. Arch had 15 completions. They went to 11 different receivers.
That's crazy.
That's so 11 of 15. It's not like he had this great rapport with one guy or another. I thought Silas Bolden, by the way, he got indoctrinated more into the offense.
Yes, he did.
Hey, that 3 for 37, and I thought the other one was a catch as well. I was surprised they took that away from him a little bit.
42-yarder. Yeah,
because I thought he got his hands back underneath that a little bit. Maybe that was just wishful thinking, but they did overturn that. But Isaiah Bond with 2, including a big one. Brian Wingo 2, including a big one as well. Matthew Golden with a deep ball. Look, everybody ate a little bit tonight, but nobody ate as big as Jaden Blue. Let's get that. All right, I want to say thank you to our sponsor real quick, guys. Then we'll get in, talk a little bit about the defense. Flight is the next generation of light beer with only 95 calories. It's an upscale light beer designed to elevate the customer experience with more taste and just 4.2 carbs. Flight is an easy-to-drink beer with a crisp taste. Try Flight from Yingling, thanks to the fine folks at Flight and our friends over at Faust Distributing. Hey, guys, I'm thinking about defense right now, and the middle linebacker spot made 2 big plays today. Anthony Hill with the interception. Should have been a pick 6. I thought that was a cheap call on the goal line on the block on the back when the guy's diving away from him, and he's trying to block him in line. I mean, that was a little bit one, but also Leonga Lafau with a safety. Nice read of that and kind of sliced right in there. Picked up the safety. Jordan Johnson-Rubel cleaned that up afterwards. What did you guys think of the defensive performance tonight?
I thought the linebackers had just a hell of a day. I mean, Anthony Hill at first, he was just making plays and was all over the place. Had the interception and had the sack early on. And then you just brought up Leonga Lafau, who looked fantastic throughout the entire game. I thought this was a game where the linebackers, to me, showed that they can be some playmakers and those guys can wreak havoc. And I mean, once again, like I said, I thought it would be a shutout. But they gave up 3 points. But once again, this defense is trending toward being right now an elite defense. I hate to say it's probably the first time I've uttered that word about the Texas defense in a while, but it's trending toward being elite, man. Just giving up We talking about 22 points in 4 games. I mean, I don't care who you facing. That's stingy. That's stingy, guys. We haven't seen anything like that in a while. So I will right now. I think the linebackers. This was their showcase game. We've seen the DBs show out. You did get, another interception. And I think you've had one now with 7 interceptions on the season by 7 different players. Is that right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, because Javion Cole and Anthony Hill got one tonight.
Yeah, so it's like that's interesting too. Usually it's kind of a one guy or a couple of guys, or your leaders. Even last year was like that, right? You had 3 different guys that tied for the lead interceptions. It just seems like now everybody's getting involved with making those havoc plays on defense, and they're spreading around a little bit. So linebackers are great. Manny Muhammad's not getting enough props, but I said this at the beginning of the season, guys. I said he's gonna go under the radar a little bit because he's only gonna get like 2 or 3 opportunities a game to make a play. One may be an overthrow, one may be a PBU, and one may be a catch. Like he's just gonna be so good that we're gonna take him for granted because he's gonna be over there and almost basically he's gonna take another receiver and make them a non-factor based on the way he plays. And he's done that. And even this game, Manny Muhammad made one of the best plays I've seen a DB make. He was reading the eyes of the receiver and had control of the receiver and still made a play on the football without interfering with the receiver, but still controlled him. And the ref was right there. And the ref, if he had, I think, got a little too handsy, the ref would have thrown the flag. That's a big step from where they were last year, guys. They couldn't make that play last year. Last year, they couldn't play the eyes of the wide receiver really well. They would end up, getting too handsy, interfere with them, or they would keep their eyes on the wide receiver the whole time, and then they would be called for pass interference because they weren't playing the football. This dude was savvy enough to read the eyes of the receiver and then get his eyes back to the football, and therefore, by definition, it cannot be interference unless I'm getting too handsy, but I got my eyes on the football. I'm playing the football. I'm a receiver now. So by definition, once you become a receiver, eyes on the ball, it negates a lot of the elements of the pass interference. And last year, they weren't doing that. That's a savvy step in development of a DB, guys. Trust me on that. So anyway, but I think the defense is on its way to being elite. We'll see. But I don't know if they're going to be tested this year, guys. When is this defense going to be tested? Jerry brought this up in the in-game live watch. Looking at all the teams they're going to play on the upcoming schedule, none of them are elite offenses.
Well, I gotta say this. You're right about that. OU switched quarterbacks tonight.
They did.
Yeah, they took out Jackson Arnold, and I predicted this in the preseason, and it has come to pass. They would go from Jackson Arnold to Michael Hawkins, and he would be starting by the OU game because he is a playmaker, and OU's offense is in desperate need of a playmaker at the quarterback spot. They can't they don't have the offensive line to do what they've done in the past, which is just sit there and try to run you to death and then throw over the top or dink and dunk you and move down the field. They just don't have that offensive line. Arnold got pulled at the end of the second half. Then Oklahoma scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. If you missed the final score, Tennessee defeated the Sooners 25-15. I think it was 22-3 when Hawkins went into the game. All right, got a couple other things to talk about here. A little bit of injury updates for you guys. Our friend DeAndre Moore was injured early in this game, did not return. Other news and notes, Derek Williams sat this game out with a hamstring. Trey Wisner sat it out with a hamstring. Jelani McDonald did not play as well. That's his second consecutive week of not being there as well. So a lot of different moving parts right now for the Longhorns. Of course, Quinn Ewers, the leading Heisman candidate, did not play tonight either. All right, guys, time to think a little bit about this game and what's going on behind the scenes and whatnot. I've got to ask y'all a question. What were y'all? This is going to be my what in the hell was going on? I'm just going to ask you this. If you're the ULM coach, what the hell are you doing running a flea flicker in the fourth quarter?
I don't know.
After Sark just did nothing but run the ball. He did not throw a pass in the fourth quarter. Sark did not throw a pass in the fourth quarter.
And he got picked. And your flea flicker got picked off.
Yeah. So what is? I mean, seriously now.
Yeah,
that's
Bobby,
like having no decorum. That's like coming over and eating everybody's chips or something at the house. What are you doing?
It's like somebody that won't fight the person standing straight up. They'll wait for him to turn around and hit him with a sucker punch, man. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, I don't know what type of message you're trying to send. Hey, if you're trying to send a message that we're going to fight to the end, that's not the play to do it. If we're going to fight to the end, let's line it up, go 5 wide or something, and let them know. Listen, we're going to keep slinging this thing until we get into the end zone. But trying to do some sort of trickery and then it doesn't even work and it blows up in your face. I mean, listen, we'll pad the stats. We appreciate it, man. Thank you. At the end of the day, I mean, he's trying to find something. I know that, right? We got the 134 on the shirts. We got the PFT on the shirts. We got the LFG on the shirts. You got at that particular point, you got to find something, right? You got to put something on the tape because when ULM goes back and watch this tape, they'll see some things that they'll try to grasp at to say, listen, guys, we did well against the number 1 team in the nation here. We gotta. I know those talks, right? It's kind of like when I was in Denver and we were getting ready to play the Patriots. Like, hey, you can tell us what you want to tell us, man, but everybody's already packed up. They got the tickets and they checked out, Rod. Listen, it is what it is. And I know this is going to be crazy for the fans to think that, oh no, our NFL athlete. No, listen, we're realists too. Right? We are realists too. And so I think that's what it was with him, man. He's just trying to set some sort of message to his team, but that was the wrong one to send. And at the end of the day, like I said, we'll pad the stats. We appreciate it.
I mean, look, just desserts with the pick, in my opinion. Right? I mean, that's kind of look.
Bobby, what type of dessert, Bobby? What type of dessert was that?
The wrong kind. I mean, it's just I just couldn't believe it. I was sitting there like, did they really just run that play? I was like, throw a slant, throw to the back out of the backfield, try to move down the field.
I would say it's more justifiable if you were being shut out. Then I kind of get it. If you shut out, like I get it. You're being shut out, man. It's like, hey, I'm not trying to have a 0 posted on the scoreboard now. But you had your 3 points, and you've been dominated to this point. And I agree. Sark had pretty much he had waved his white flag, like, hey, dude, we're done. I'm done. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna hand it off from now on, just so you know.
We went 3 deep, for crying out loud. I had to get on the depth chart to figure out who was in the game, man. We went 3 deep. And the third offensive line was kicking their butt, man. So I'm like, yo, come on, like, relax. You know what I mean?
He was probably mad at Colin Page for running down their damn throat. He's like, hey, y'all put that dude. I said he was a walk-on. He's down here averaging 6 yards a pop on y'all. Man.
He walked all on that defense is what he did, Rob.
He was walking on that defense.
He was walking on that defense, man.
Hey, guys, it just came up on the screen from the chat, but Sark did, according to CJ Vogel as well, who's at the press conference right now, he says that Sark has told folks that the injury for DeAndre Moore is a hip pointer. So we'll know more what that exactly means. But Moore made a nice first down catch and then immediately went off the field and into the dressing room. Hope he gets back and gets healthy again. By the way, another key injury that did occur today, and this has a impact on Texas's future games. If you have not heard this, Mississippi State's Blake Shapen, their starting quarterback, of course, the former starter at Baylor, out for the season with an injury. Out for the season. So next weekend, when Mississippi State comes calling, they're going to be bringing a true freshman quarterback into Austin to try to see what they can do against the Longhorns, who, as Rod put it, have given up 22 points in 4 football games. Wow. It's 3 out of 4 games now where the opponent has not scored a touchdown. 3 out of 4. Tony, I'll ask you. I asked Rod had a good point about the defense. What did you see on defense tonight? Rod talked a little bit about the secondary and the linebackers. What did you see from those guys?
Good eyes tonight. I think their eyes were in the right place. These guys always play with their hair on fire, so the effort is always going to be there. I think the place that they started getting better at is just being able to trust their keys and not get greedy right? Staying in the spots that they're supposed to be in, trusting the way that the defensive plan and the scheme is, and making the plays that were there, right? One of the things you talked about the linebackers, guys, we know we always got to talk about our guy, man, Mr. David Bender. At this point, I'm gonna have to call him Mr. David, right? Mr. David was all over the field. There was one play that he made where he literally walked down the running back from the opposite side on the field and held it to a 3-yard gain. It's that type of effort that you're getting from players of that caliber that permeates throughout the whole team. So if I had to say anything that I liked about the defense tonight, it was that their eyes were in the right place for 4 quarters, all right? They didn't give up a couple runs and things like that. Yeah, I mean, those guys are ball players too. And with the portal, you know, you got guys coming from some of these bigger schools to play and get some opportunities. So although you might see the ULM on their helmet, those guys are coming from the Cals and the UCLAs and all of these other places. So they got some players. But for the most part, Texas defense did what they were supposed to do, and they dominated. And for me, as long as they keep their eyes in the right place, they're going to be fine. We saw what it looked like when they did when we played Michigan. That's when Edwards popped that 17-yard run. We saw last week when there was some leakiness on the defense when Bender jumped the gap and the guy cut back and missed out. So as long as the guys are playing with their eyes, they're going to have opportunities to do some big things every single week. Trust the scheme, which is what they're doing, and play together. You're going to be fine. So that's what I saw today. Domination.
Yeah, they really. I mean, after that, look, ULM had one nice drive all night.
One.
You know, and that was the one that led to a field goal.
Yep.
And I think Texas may have gotten caught playing second and third stringers at some point during that drive a little bit, especially up front in the front 7. Not necessarily in the back group, but Ty Anthony Smith was in. Some other younger players were in as well at that point, and ULM took advantage of it. So it didn't happen against Anthony Hill. By the way, we were talking about holding guys out. Anthony Hill, I don't think, played from the second quarter on.
Didn't feel like it.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, every play he was in, he basically made the tackle or did something. It's crazy, it felt like. Hey, want to put up the overall team stats real quick and get y'all's reaction, because this will show the two teams and what they did tonight. Texas 500, right at it, 500 yards of total offense compared to just 111.
It's crazy.
That's
crazy. That's domination.
That's pretty good. Also 239 yards on the ground for the Longhorns. That was good versus 57 for ULM. Some of that erased, by the way, from big sack numbers from Texas tonight as well. So all in all, 497 to 111, 2 turnovers apiece, I believe, 258 through the air versus 54. That's a little lopsided. But look, how many Texas? Hey guys, Rod and Tony, what were the 2 big things heading into this season that we wanted to see Texas improve on? 2 big things: secondary
and red zone.
And red zone. Secondary and red zone. 2 picks tonight. And look at the red zone.
Yeah.
Burt Auburn.
80%.
Yeah, 7 for 7. They were 7 for 7 in the red zone tonight for touchdowns. I think they've only got 1 trip to the red zone so far this year through 4 games that hasn't ended in a touchdown.
Yeah.
What do y'all think of that?
I mean, emphasis, right?
14-15, I think, going into this game, scoring on all 15 of those.
That's a team effort, Bobby. That's a team effort. When you go back and you evaluate this Texas team last year, we talked about that, the secondary and the red zone, right? That was an emphasis all throughout camp. You got to know those guys talked about that. You got to know that they practiced that. And so now you're starting to see the fruits of their labor. The thing that I like to see is the TOP. TOP meaning time of possession. When you're able to have the ball more than the opponent, and you're able to now finish that with drives, that's a killer for the opposing team. Here's another killer. When you can score a touchdown, get a turnover, and then capitalize on the turnover with a touchdown, like the Archie Manning score, the Anthony Hill pick, and then punch it in the end zone, that's a 14-point swing, right? So it's not just showing that these guys are capitalizing in the red zone and their secondary is playing better and we're getting the turnovers that we need to get in order to get that explosive offense back on the field. It's also showing the continuity between team ball, which is what you're going to need in order to win a national championship. There's going to come a game where somebody on one side, either the defense is going to be challenged a little bit more than we expected, or the offense is going to be challenged a little bit more than we expected. That game is coming. And if you can swing that momentum and swing that pendulum left or right and be able to help whichever team needs it the most, whether offense or defense, and you convert on those particular things, that's the thing that lets you know that you have a well-rounded team. Texas is a well-rounded team right now, and it's a reason why they're ranked number one. People get to see it on display every night. So, yeah, man, I don't think this changes. At the end of the day, as explosive as Arch is, and I love seeing him play, when Quinn comes back, I think it even increases more because, again, the middle of the field was not even used tonight, fellas. These were deep shots that we were taking left and right, and these guys were out there executing. And then the run game took off as well. So, like, there's still I think for me, the thing that's exciting is there's still a whole segment of field that wasn't utilized, and these guys are putting up 50-plus points. This is going to get scary really soon, Rod. This is going to get scary really soon.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think there are a lot of different ways this team can get better, and they're right now, playing like the best team in the country. In terms of, getting back to the red zone offense, and we know it's something that Sark focused on in the offseason. He was asked about it over and over again, but it had to bother him to be 120th in the country in touchdown precision red zone with all the NFL weapons they had. Now, I believe that they're 23 red zone opportunities and 21 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, it's 21 and 23, Rod.
I think it's 21 out of 23. Because I think they came into the game 14 of 16.
Okay,
if I'm not mistaken. But like I said, if I'm off, so I'm asked, please let me know. It's just from my breakdown. But either way, I believe they're essentially one of the top, if not the top, red zone offense in the country. So to go from 120th to being top 5 or whatever they are right now, I don't know what it is after this week. That is amazing, man. And it shows you, and T. Hills just hit it, right? Coaches always say you get what you emphasize. Sark says it too. They emphasize that. And then the secondary, I can't say enough about the secondary because they're playing tighter coverage, number one. But they're playing, how do I state this? They're just playing better situationally. They're thinking the game through. You can see them playing the sticks a lot more. You can see them, even my example earlier about Malik Muhammad, playing through the eyes. Eyes lead him, to win, react to the football. I mean, these guys right now, they're buttoned up. Their technique is really good. They're using leverage now, playing hard inside leverage. The schemes are also helping them. The schemes are, I think, for Johnny Nansen and the collaboration he's had with PK has been really beneficial to the secondary. You talked about it, Bobby, the individualized coaching. Now they're coaching the nickel safeties and the corners like individually because Scott Hazelton takes the nickels too. I think that's helping because they seem more buttoned up and they're hive-minded. Hive-minded. It's a term Coach Aquino would always throw out there. You got to be thinking like a hive, man. You guys all got to be on the same page, even though you're not necessarily communicating at the time verbally. You guys are all seeing the game the same way and reacting to the game and adjusting to it in the same way. And yes, the communication is better, but they are a hive-minded group now, man. They see the game the same way. And there's no doubt we've seen that materialize on the field.
All right, a lot to talk about tonight. No doubt about it. We're going to get to the chat line here coming up, start talking about this. I would add a couple of other scores that are of note around the SEC. Arkansas defeats Auburn in Auburn. That was a big win, I think, for the Razorbacks. Of course, Texas goes to Fayetteville later. Another game that Texas will be playing on the road is at Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt went to double OT with a top 10 ranked Missouri team that I think may not be a top 10 team based on their last 2 weeks' performances, but also Texas with the 51-3 win. Ole Miss, a no doubt winner over Georgia Southern. I think it was 52 to, I don't know. I think it was either 52-6 or 52-13 the last I saw it. So Not a lot to mention there other than those games. A&M did hold on to beat Bowling Green as well, 26-20. Bowling Green scored, I think it was 26-16. Bowling Green scored a field goal with less than a minute left, then tried to go get an onside kick and could not do it. Final, the Aggies won there as well. All right, let's get to the chat line a little bit here. Freelance Society asks, was that the game? How did OU look? I only saw a little bit of it here and there. I was focused on the Longhorn game. I got to admit, I am going to watch that OU game tomorrow, though. We'll try to make sure that we get that back to you. Hey, this one from Anish Singh. Is it just me, or is Colin Page low-key nice? He actually sees the hole pretty darn well. I don't know if he's going to be as gifted as some other guys overall, but we were talking about that a little bit earlier. People are asking what's ailing Derek Williams. He was out tonight with a hamstring. And also DeAndre Moore, Sark said in postgame press conference that he got a hip pointer. Rod, Tony, here's a question for you guys. Where did Arch struggle tonight? Because it was not, a christening tonight of the next great quarterback at Texas. He played well overall, in my opinion. Not phenomenal, but well enough. Led the team well. Didn't really feel like he was shaky back there, but he did struggle at times.
Yeah.
Where is it that he struggled, in y'all's opinion?
Growth, just youthful growth, right? At the end of the day, he's a young guy. He's a young player. I believe that he needs to understand that every play is not going to be a strike, right? And Stark talked about it at the halftime. Sometimes you got to understand that you got to throw the ball away. Like sometimes the defense calls the right play and you live to fight another down, but you don't put your offense in a position where you're throwing turnovers, and you don't put your defense in a position to where now they have to go out and certain change operations. I know, Rod, you guys on defense, you live for those type of moments, but you much rather have it to where it's nice and smooth, where we're kicking field goals and there's a kickoff happening and we can get into the game plan, right? And so I think for Arch, that's what I saw from him, just the youthful growth, the mistakes that, you're going to make as a redshirt freshman, seeing this, this is his first full action, right? He's played in spots. And so now when you're the guy, everybody knows that you're the guy. There's some film out there for us to watch and the game plan on. I think ULM did a good job within that first, couple of series of disguising some blitzes and disguising some secondary coverages that had them throwing in the triple coverage. And even if we're looking at critique too, Bobby, some of those deep shots that he took there were 2 and 3 guys on the guy. Right now,
they were ill-advised.
Exactly. And that's the gunslinger mentality. I saw that a lot with a guy named Brett Favre that just thought he could throw every ball into the window. It's a feast or famine mentality. And so I know with Sark, he's probably going to go more with that. Let's keep the ball protected. We got a good defense. We can make the plays when we need to make them, live to fight another down. So that's what I saw.
Yep.
Where did Arch struggle, Rod?
No, that was T. Hills hit the nail on the head there about, the deep shots, because he's trying to force the interception. The first interception is a primary example of it. He wanted that route really bad. Because remember, the guy pressures him. He has a chance to reset, and he steals like, I'm going back to that route. I want that route. Then he throws it, and they're outnumbered. It's 2 guys in that area, and ULM has 3 guys in that area. So as Teals pointed out, he wasn't even necessarily open, but you really wanted that route. And that was the case on a lot of those deep shots. So I agree with Teals there. Yeah, take what the defense is giving you.
Yes.
Stark's offense is engineered to create matchup advantages and create one-on-ones. And Texas is usually going to win a one-on-one every damn time because they got better athletes, especially against ULM. So take that one-on-one, all right? Even if it's just an underneath throw, a check down, take that one-on-one, and then eventually the big play will come naturally to you. And that's what I think Quinn had to learn as a young quarterback. The big play will come. It'll come. If you take what the defense is giving you, the big play will naturally, organically come within the structure of the offense. And I think sometimes he was trying to force it, and nothing wrong with that. Hell, if I had 5 touchdowns in 29 plays in my first 3 plays, I had 2 touchdowns last week. You know what I'd be trying to do? I'm going downtown because I'd probably have a little elevated, belief of what I can achieve, and that's fine. So I got no problem with that. Also, I think he holds on to the ball a little bit longer because I think he's trying to get deep into progressions. But I think he needs to, and this is, I think, will happen naturally, the rhythm of the offense. Quinn has a great rhythm with this offense. Like, he gets rid of the ball so quickly. It's drop back, boom, boom, and everything's on time and on schedule. With Arch, not a lot is on time and on schedule. He's kind of, he's a lot, off schedule, and he's not necessarily within rhythm in the offense. I think Sark's going to work to get him in a rhythm in the offense. Timing, precision, getting the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker. And on some of those deep balls, sometimes he's holding on to the ball a little bit too long. On those deep balls, and allowing the defense to react. Instead of throwing the guy open, he's throwing to an open guy. And it's like, no, well, once you throw to an open guy, by the time the ball gets there, he ain't going to be open no more. You throw a guy open, you throw to that spot where he'll be. At Silas Bowden, that was a kind of primary example of him throwing a guy open. And we thought it was a catch, and it wasn't a catch. So it's little small things. Take what the defense is giving you. It's really tough for even veteran quarterbacks. LT Hills, remember, that's what they were trying to get Patrick Mahomes to do. And even Patrick Mahomes struggled with it. And finally, last year, he did it, and they threw a lot of underneath passes. But now, what do? They added vertical threats to the offense. They add Xavier Worthy. Because ultimately, every quarterback, no matter how much, you let them have the underneath, they want that deep shot. They want it bad.
Absolutely.
And I cannot remember, guys, you let me know. I can't remember a Sark offense taking this many deep shots in the first half since Quinn in Oklahoma State, maybe.
Maybe Casey Thompson against Texas Tech.
Yeah. That's the game that I was going to go to, the Texas Tech, Casey Thompson. Listen, man, Ryan, you're on point, man. I'll tell you this. Another thing, though, two guys that we're not thinking about that just hit me. Quinn's been in this offense for 3 years, right? Yep. Sark knows who Quinn is. You know who also knows who Quinn is? Quinn knows who he is. Sark is trying to figure out who Arch is. I have an idea, right? But I have to figure it out. Arch is trying to figure out who Arch is. Like, I know I can run and I can throw deep, but who am I as a quarterback? And I think that's only going to happen the more opportunities that he gets to really be able to settle into being the quarterback. So I think that we know we have something, and that's the excitement, right? But we have to be careful of the comparison game of who Arch is versus who Quinn is, because there's 3 years of separation. Who is Arch next year? Who is Arch the year before, right? Who is he now? Deep shot guy, athletic, that's going to sit there, and I feel like I can make that throw, right? And Sark will have to rein that wild horse in, and if you can rein him in, you're going to get 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns out of him, but you're also going to probably get a couple picks because he got to grow. And so from what I saw, the one thing you did talk about, Rod, that I loved is him holding on to the ball, right? I counted my thousands on the line. I was like, all right, let me look and see what this sack was. 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, 1,004, 1,005. All right, big fella, we got to get that thing out, man. So I think that as he continues to grow, he's going to get better. But all in all, man, I think he had like you said, Bobby, he didn't have a phenomenal game, but he had a good game. Yeah.
It was a win. He came back. I was going to mention this, and I didn't earlier, but Bob Shipley in the Watch With Us said, "Hey, sometimes it's good for young quarterbacks to face adversity.
Yes,
teams to face adversity." One of the things he talked about was after Arch threw that second interception, how Texas held them without. I mean, they got a first down, but didn't give up extra points. The field goal got blocked, obviously. So it could have been 6 points on the board, but the point being Texas didn't then go back up and give up a big touchdown and make that a 28-10 game at halftime or something like that. So I felt like that was a big piece of it. I do want to add this, just a little note from El Conquistador. He's asking about Sadir Mitchell because Sadir Mitchell did not play tonight, and he was taken to the dressing room sometime during the either late third quarter or fourth quarter. Not exactly sure why or what happened there, but we'll follow up with that as well. Somebody's asking, where was Jalen Gilbo? He played a lot tonight. It wasn't that he didn't play. He just didn't make a lot of, he wasn't in a lot of practice. Yeah. Especially when they decided, because look, they didn't play base nickel sometimes today. They went with two line, or they went with 3 linebackers times, or even Colin Simmons at Sam or Trey Moore at Sam. They once they figured out that all Louisiana Monroe was going to do was run. That's kind of what they looked in. Rod, this one for you from Josh Wolverton. Rod, from a DB's perspective, who do you feel is playing the best in our secondary that's playing extremely well? Jahdae Barron, Manny Muhammad would be my two suggestions for you to pick from. Didn't see a lot of Andrew Makuba tonight, but they didn't really test the middle of the field with the passing game at all. So it's hard for him to get that involved. Who's playing the best for the Longhorn secondary right now?
I agree with you, Bobby. Jahdae Barron is hard not to say. I mean, he's making impact splash plays and having plays damn near every game. If it's not a pick, then it's a pass deflection or it's a PBU. I mean, fumble recovery. He's all over the place, and I believe he's the highest graded SEC going into this week. Actually, he was the highest graded SEC cornerback by Pro Football Focus. And Malik Muhammad. If you are a Longhorn fan and you're watching the games, then you realize how much of a lockdown corner Malik Muhammad has become. And there's just not a lot of action over there. And I honestly, the truth is he's going to get less and less action. Because if you're throwing the football, why would you throw it at Malik Muhammad? Why would you throw it? And then when they got Jahdae Barron out there at the other corner, then that makes it even tougher. Because he's thinking, all right, I'm not throwing at either one of these corners. I'm going to the slot receiver. I'm going to attack these safeties. And Texas safety. Now, this is probably where you're going to go because Texas had a lot of injuries at safety lately for some reason. Derek Williams didn't start this game. Jelani McDonald did it with injury. So they haven't been playing their dime as much, that NASCAR dime they like the last two games. I guess the reason they haven't played as much, remember Phil Simi wasn't available the last game either. So it may be because of the depth issues at safety. Maybe that's where you attack Texas in the passing game. It's the safeties, maybe. But they're still playing at a really high level. But I would say Jahdae Barron and Malik Muhammad are right now. I think you're all SEC, first team, all SEC caliber guys. Makuba's playing at a really high level too. He didn't make any splash plays tonight, but he's a guy that also should be in that conversation. He actually is one. I think they got him on that. Was the longest pass play of the game? Actually, was they tried to occupy the eyes. They kind of got these guys' eyes, and then the tight end made a good play and actually ran through Makuba on that one. That's one of the only big plays I think they gave up all game long. But I think those three are the best. But I don't think there's a guy in that secondary that's having a bad year right now that plays regularly.
That's good. So that's a great point. There's not a weak spot right now.
No. I thought it was Gavin Holmes or somebody, but it ain't.
Yeah. To your point, Rod, I listened to you talk about attacking the safeties. A lot of time to attack the safeties, we're looking at play action, deep end routes, maybe deep post. I'm trying to figure out how do you even get to that with the pass rush, right? With the Anthony Hills and the Treys and the Searles, I don't know how you can even get to that package, right? And then now when we throw in Broughton and we got Alfred Collins playing in the backfield a couple times, that's you don't have what you need up front to be able to get to those particular packages. And so I'm to Bobby's point, I'm trying, and Jerry's point, I am really looking to see what offense comes out and test Texas defense. I don't know. We know it's not going to be Mississippi State, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Florida, maybe kind of. If we'll see.
Graham Mertz, Florida's offense. I think they had 2 incomplete passes all day today against Mississippi State. What's Quinn Ewers going to do if Quinn plays next week? What's Quinn Ewers going to do against that defense?
Wow,
that would be my first question. Mississippi State did not look good on defense at all. This is a question, guys, that I think is particularly good for y'all. This is the On Texas Football post-game show brought to you by our friends over at Yingling and Flight, the next generation of light beer. We'll tell you a little bit more about those guys later. But the reason I want to ask you guys, you two, Tony Hills and Rod Babers, this question is because you guys were actual recruits. Gilbert Hare has a question here. Does this W help in recruiting? Does it, in y'all's mind, that Texas had a couple of guys on campus? It can't hurt, right?
Yeah.
I would think. To see that many players play, it'd be a runaway. But I don't think this one singular game is going to have a major moment of epiphany for a recruit. It's more about the whole package right now from Texas, whether that's on offense with Sark or on defense. And again, not giving up a touchdown. But does a game like this, you guys were recruited, does a game like this help in recruiting, or is it more just cementing what maybe you think of the program already? Maybe
I think it more submits what we already think about the program. I mean, I guess the only thing that if you're looking at it from a standpoint of, if you're one of the guys that just feels like you can go in and get it done early, you see a lot of the freshmen out there doing their thing. So you say to yourself, well, hey, listen, Texas is giving opportunities for guys that can go out here and ball early. And if that's something that you're into, right? And a lot of players think that they're ready to go until they get out there. Like they said, right? Everybody got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? So you can see that Sark will put you out there if he can trust you and if you can play. But this is not like the Michigan game, right? So I don't really see where we flip players or anything like that. I think it more solidifies to quote the who was it that said they are who we thought they were? Diddy Green. To quote the great Diddy Green, they are who we thought they were, right? And so I think that's what this game was, Bobby.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I think Teal is right. I mean, I don't know if the specific win over ULM is going to help recruiting, but it really does reaffirm your number one ranking. You didn't let down after gaining that number one ranking, which is kind of a weekly achievement award, but that number one ranking is going to help recruiting, right? Because that's something you carry with you everywhere you go. It's like, we recruiting for the number one team in the country. Just so we haven't accomplished our goal yet, but we're well on our way. And everybody sees that it's something special happening at Texas. And also, if you want to go specifically to the win itself, to the game, if they're watching the game, man, a lot of guys play. I mean, you play in Texas. If a good chance you're a baller, if you come in and you're a baller, and if you're a young guy, Sark has proven, to Teal's point, that if you're good enough, you old enough. So if you're young and you can ball, Colin Simmons and the Ryan Wingos of the world, we were just talking about some of the other young players at Texas who have shown out. The young LaFowle's a good young player that's playing really well for him now. But Texas will play you. And I think that actually is encouraging. They play a lot of guys, and if you're young and you are capable, they don't, Texas doesn't necessarily discriminate against, this guy's a freshman. We don't play freshmen like that. You're a freshman, you can go, you play with Texas.
Oh, go ahead, Tony.
I was going to say, this is the last point I'll make, Bobby. To strengthen Rod's point, I think right now, Baby Rhino is leading with attempts in rushing yards right now. He is a freshman. Yeah. So let that speak volumes for exactly what Rod is saying, man. Like, if you can play, you can ball, they're gonna put you out there, period, and point blank.
Yeah, I think Jaden Blue is probably now taking the lead.
after tonight, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he was leading going into it.
Yeah.
Ryan, I don't know who's leading in yardage. Ryan Wingo came up with 2 more big plays in this game. Isaiah Bond, a big catch. We talked about that early on. Hey guys, this is another good one as well. John Haney, we talked about this briefly. I just want to mention this. I don't necessarily need an answer from you, Tony or Rod, but it's a good point. John Haney, only 2 made field goals this season by Burt Auburn. That is so true. Burt's scoring 7 points a game just on PATs right now. So that's what he's
crazy, doing. Man. Yeah. NFL kicker, too. That guy's an NFL kicker. I ain't giving a chance to kick.
This one from Richard Davis. Michigan today, guys. I don't know if y'all saw this, but they beat up on USC defensively. They got after USC. Now, USC, I thought, was going to win that game because Michigan's offense was abysmal. Michigan today passed for 32 yards.
Yeah.
32 yards, and they won the game.
And they won the game.
Okay. They broke loose a 60-yard run up the middle on a 3rd and 1.
Wow.
In a 2-minute. I've never seen a 2-minute drill like that. Michigan threw 1 pass.
That is a shame. That's shameful. For a defense, that's shameful, for a defense, man. You got to feel ashamed when the team just beats you one-dimensional like that. That's crazy.
It was the same play over and over again. And a guy broke loose for 60, and Michigan ended up putting it in the end zone on a 4th and 1. What's that?
Interesting about the Michigan defense that's interesting is that Sark laid out the blueprint how to beat the Michigan defense.
Yes.
The blueprint.
And he
I'm
didn't do
surprised
it.
Lincoln Riley couldn't replicate it. He either didn't have the weapons to replicate it or didn't have like the in-game adjustments or the in-game feel that Sark had. But that's just, I figured that Lincoln Riley would pick that defense apart. So I was like, he's just going to take Sark's blueprint and go, all right, I'm going to do what Sark did to him. It didn't work that way.
You can't, Rob, because they can't hold up in the middle to run that play. Those guys up front for USC are not as athletic as the Texas guys, and they don't hold the point as well. So it's hard for you to get outside of those guys. You got to think about it. In order to get outside of a defensive lineman, you would have to be able to have him have no penetration on the line of scrimmage. Yeah. Every time they snapped the ball, Michigan was playing in USC's backfield. So, we can't even get outside to do that. The only thing you could possibly look to do is maybe a couple of the swing routes and things of that nature. But trying to get them to stretch outside and run them and make them tired, not with those guys up front that they got. It's not going to happen.
I would say this basically on watching that game, and I'm going to bring in CJ Vogel here in a little bit. As soon as we get him in, he's actually on the field right now, I think, and we're going to try to get to him. But I want to say this: Sark used a lot of targets to motion.
Yes.
Against Michigan. Rod, I know you're big into stats like that. I would be interested to see if Lincoln Riley uses that as frequently as Sark does, because I didn't see it in that game. Because if you think about it, Sark got Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue out on the edge with a lot of, basically they went in motion and he tossed it to him outside, right?
Yep.
Long run plays. I did not see that from Lincoln Riley today. We talked about this. There were not a lot of throws behind the line of scrimmage for Arch Manning today. It was a lot of play action and drop back. There was only a couple of throws. I think I remember one screen to Jaden Blue that was kind of off target from Arch Manning, and then another one as well that was like kind of a side one. Here's CJ Vogel. CJ, you were just at the press conference for Coach Steve Sarkisian. You also heard Arch Manning talk a little bit. Tell us what the coach said, as well as some of the players, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the common theme was it was a great opportunity for Arch to learn on the fly, right? You're playing at ULM, you're at home, you have a great team around you with a great supporting cast. It's almost a non-consequential game for Arch to be out there as your QB2 and really start to learn on the fly. Get out there, understand the speed of the game, get more live reps, play a different team, get some different looks. Sarkisian, I thought, he complimented his quarterback, but, I think was also, as the former quarterback himself, was a bit critical, right? And that's to be expected. He's been tough on Quinn. He's been tough on Malik. He's been tough on quarterbacks previously here at Texas. And I think when you go back and you watch the tape and you're going to start to realize, okay, maybe there were times to check down. Maybe there were different reads to make. Regardless, I thought Arch played well. The first interception, not a great read, maybe not a great throw. The second interception, probably a ball that should have been caught. If it was caught, I think you're looking at a much different day than what maybe could have been a bit of a learning game for Arch. But again, Sark said, at times that offense got a bit stagnant in the third quarter. Maybe that's on me to find different rhythm plays for Arch to get the ball out quick. We see Quinn Ewers do it very often. Just get the ball to his playmakers and let them make the play down the field. With Arch, I kind of wonder if it's a defense mechanism in his own way that when the first or second read isn't there, just trust the wide receiver running 40 yards down the field, because we saw a lot of deep passes tonight. And ultimately, again, I think that this game is a great way for him to develop on the fly before he's passed the reins later on.
CJ, anybody else other than Sark say anything in the post-game presser that you found interesting?
Yeah, I kind of joked with Anthony Hill. I said, "Hey, it looked like you were back at Denton Ryan, with your tailback days." And he goes, "Hey, man, I'm not suited for any short line, running back situations. Don't even ask me." So that was fun. But Jaden Blue, we heard from Kelvin Banks, we heard from Anthony Hill. Just to see him come back from a bit of an ankle sprain and score 4 touchdowns, that's quite the performance, right? 24 rush attempts, 125 yards, found the end zone 4 times. Probably could have found it a 5th time if Arch and him were able to connect on that wheel route there. But really strong bounce back performance. The Texas running game, it got loose a little bit. You saw a bit more 10-yard runs. I'm still waiting, and I know Rod and I have talked about this in the past. I'm still waiting on those 25 to 30 to 40-yard breakaway runs that we saw or have seen over the past few years. I think they're coming. They're getting close. But tonight was a good step in the right direction.
I thought it was a good step in the right direction as well, CJ. Thank you for coming on with us. One final question for you, buddy. They talking anything about the defense tonight? I know we talked to Arch Manning, the story of the night, kind of. It's his first start, et cetera. What did Sark have to say about the Texas D?
Well, and I'm not trying to put any words in Sark's mouth here, but I'm starting to call them elite, Bobby. I don't know about you guys or what y'all have said earlier today. 2 touchdowns allowed through 4 games, pretty darn good. But for Sark, again, it's that continual progression of getting a lot of guys snaps, getting a lot of guys that early experience, right? You saw Kobe Black, you saw Ty Anthony Smith, you saw a lot of guys in the second quarter of this game when it wasn't necessarily a true blowout as we saw in the second half, late in the fourth quarter. The other thing is the pride on that defensive side of the ball right now is very high. And for another game this year, you're seeing a late takeaway to prevent a score. Those guys that are working with the 3s and the 4s that maybe don't get their opportunity all too much on the field are taking advantage of it. We saw it tonight with Javion Cole's interception. These guys are hungry, and right now, again, 2 touchdowns in 4 games. Pretty darn good. I think they're pretty happy in that defensive playroom right now.
All right, CJ Vogel, thank you, buddy. We'll see you tomorrow morning for rapid reactions. Appreciate you very much. I know you got to go right for the website. Please do so over there at ontexasfootball.com. All right, we got it's that time of night, guys, where I gotta ask you your players of the game on this one for the Longhorns. Texas winning 51-3 tonight over ULM. Players of the game. Is there any doubt that we're going to go with Jaden Blue on offense, or is that's the guy? Tony, you go for it. Talk about Jaden Blue's night if you don't mind.
That's the consensus, man. This guy came off and he was on fire, right? You could tell he was itching to get at the ball. And the one thing that I liked about Jaden is he's very patient, right? He knows how to pick his spots. He knows when to explode. He knows when to hide behind the lineman, hide behind that tight end on the counter plays, and to explode into the defense. And he's a finisher, man. And you have to love that about backs like that. One thing about a lineman is that if I can get this hole open for my guy, I know he's going to hit the hole the right way. And Blue just continues to do the right thing at the right time, at the right moment, and we get the right results because of it. Talking about 4 touchdowns tonight, guys. That's one heck of a return. Welcome back, Mr. Blue. He is definitely the player of the game for me offensively, for sure.
Rod, there's just no question, right? I mean, they rode him hard in the second half, in particular in that one drive. 63 yards rushing out of 66 total yards gained in a single series.
Yeah, I still want to know why. He's great. I mean, maybe it was just to prove that, Jaden Blue can do that. But coming off the injury, so, he had a week to get, really, really get those fresh legs under him. But I did not expect him to have 32 opportunities, 7 targets, guys. He only had 1 catch out of those 7 targets. This stat line could have been more robust if he had caught 2 or 3 of those, because 2 or 3 of them could have been touchdowns on some of those wheel concepts. So Sark wants to, that essentially he was the identity of your offense tonight. And
yes.
And I wonder going forward, he's going to be a lot of your identity because he is going to be the main workhorse running back. And guys, he's had 6 targets in the Colorado State game. He had 6 targets in that Michigan game, and he didn't play in the UTSA game, and he gets 7 targets in this game. Guys, that's crazy. So he's averaging like at least 6+ targets a game when he plays. I don't know if there's a receiver averaging that many targets a game.
That's the mismatch. That's the mismatch of Jaden Blue.
Yeah, he's your offensive catalyst, man. It's him in terms of the run game, and nobody gets more opportunities in his offense than Jaden Blue.
Yeah.
I talked to a former college coach this offseason that went to see Texas in the spring. And he said, I don't know about Sark, but I would have to get the ball to number 23 as often as possible because he's so damn fast. It's like you just want to, because he can run by people and make big plays. What I think is great about what Jaden Blue's done for himself, he's always had that speed, guys. That's not new for him. I followed him in high school. That's why he ended up at Texas or had offers to Alabama, that whole list. What I think Jaden Blue's done is put in the work to be a more complete back.
Yeah.
Carrying 20, the Jaden Blue I saw in high school, I would have never thought he could carry the ball 25 times in a game on the Division I level. And I'm not just talking about at Texas. He just wasn't that kind of workhorse.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So that's number one. Number two, I saw him make a couple of blitz pickups today that looked like he cared.
That's the NFL.
What I mean, you can tell when a running back takes a little pride in that. I think Jaden Blue, when he first got to Texas, he probably wasn't taking much pride in that. That because that wasn't what got him to Texas in the first place. But he looked like he had a nice game overall.
And I've talked to
touchdowns.
I've talked to Trey Weisner, Bobby, and he said that's such a short choice influence. It's like, I played in the NFL. Trust me, if you can't pass protect, you can't play in the league, you won't make rosters. And he's made sure that all the running backs really good at pass protection, or they take it seriously and prioritize it to that point. And somebody brought up in the chat, and thank you guys, because I forgot all about it too. Last year, Jaden Blue was clocked as the fastest running back in college football, over 22 miles per hour. So you add that with the fastest player, at least in the first 3 weeks of college football, which was Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond has been the leader in targets, so I'm not mistaken, for Texas early on this season so far in the receiving core. And now you got Jaden Blue, who's basically your leader in targets at running back. He's basically targeting the most his two fastest guys on the team, which are arguably two of the fastest players in college football. And so that, I think, it's all about getting speed on the perimeter as much as possible to stress the defense. And that's what Sark is trying to do vertically, but out horizontally too with Jaden Blue a lot of the times. Great take right there, Rod, because as I think about it, it makes so much sense. By doing that, now when you put Blue behind in the I formation and things of that nature, or in the gun, and we're running downhill, right? We've already stretched that defense out enough that now those holes are open even more. And if you're talking about a guy that has that breakaway speed, now he can hit you from multiple places. But to go to your pickup about the backs, Bobby, and about Blue, let's look at his predecessors though. Bijan cared. Roshan cared. This guy sat behind those guys and learned the game the right way. And then to your point, Rod, having the NFL influence of Tashard Choice, I mean, he understands what it takes to be a complete back, and he's now a complete back with that added component. And I think that that's what's going to be dangerous for a lot of defenses, is that this guy is going to do it the right way at the right time in all moments. I'm excited to see what he does next week for sure.
All right, let's move on to the defense, guys. A little bit harder decision here, because the Longhorns played so many people. I was going to mention this to you guys, by the way. I counted up real quick. I counted 11 true freshmen getting action today on offense or defense. You mentioned talking about putting in some of the backups in the second quarter. Alex January, the defensive lineman, was playing in the first quarter tonight. Talk about a young freshman that not many people have talked about, but maybe moving up in the ranks a little bit. Young man out of Duncanville, joining his fellow Duncanville mate, Colin Simmons, playing a lot of early downs and stuff. But I was going to ask you all about the defensive side of the ball. Any players of the game there? LaFau with the safety, also had a sack and another TFL. Anthony Hill with the touchdown, and he just looks great. I'm going to give you mine, and it's not going to be a guy that stuffed the stat sheet, but I'm going with Barron Sorrell.
Yes,
and I'll tell you why. He made a couple of splash plays, and when ULM was running the ball, Barron Sorrell was not in there. When he came back in and played a little bit in the third quarter, that's when the run game started going nowhere.
Okay.
Because he was able to squeeze that down a little bit better than some other guys that were playing. So I'm going to go with Barron Sorrell, but I would agree with probably if you guys went somebody else, I wouldn't be arguing, because I don't know if there was that singular player where you just said, oh, he was definitely the best. Like Jaden Blue, none of us argued about, right?
No.
I think I could clearly see that happening on defense. Rod, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with LaValle was great, but Anthony Hill was. I didn't even see much of him in the second half, but man, when he was out there, he was such a impactful player, such a force multiplier. Early on, got you to sack. I want to say it felt like they were on back-to-back drives, if I'm not mistaken, but the sack, and then the
It was the first 2 drives of the game.
Yeah, it's like it was all Anthony Hill, and I was like, man, and I saw the stat prior to this week that Pro Football Focus had him graded as a top 5 linebacker among Power 4 linebackers, so they had him as a top 5 linebacker. And he now when I saw him in those first couple of drives of the game, I said, yeah, he looks like one of the best linebackers in the country. And I think he is going to end up being one of the best linebackers in the country when it's all said and done. I mean, right now you can say he's playing at close to an all SEC level. And I didn't necessarily, that early on I thought that'd be the case, but we're talking about a guy that could be a first team all SEC defender, possibly, if he continues to play like this.
Yeah. For me, me and Bobby are on the same accord, because one of the things that I looked at, like it's easy. It's so easy if you're looking at the game as a fan to say, okay, hey man, that guy got that interception, that guy got that pick, that man made that safety. But when you watch the totality of the game and you see where the impact is, that's what I'm looking at. And so that's the same thing that I saw too, Bobby. When they took Barron off the field, it was a little, they were getting some things happening. But when they put him back on the field, he squeezed down that tackle the whole time and turned everything back inside. He didn't only do that on defense on running plays. He also did that on play actions when he had the one that made the quarterback step up in the pocket, and now gave Ben an opportunity to come down and smack him and get the ball out quick for incompletion. So he's doing things that impact the game, but it might not necessarily impact the stat sheet. So I'm gonna go with Barron Sorrell for this one as well.
Okay, I want to give an honorable mention. We mentioned LaFau. I want to give an honorable mention to David Benda.
Yes,
you mentioned that one play where he chased down the running back from the backside and made it look. He didn't make it look effortless, but he made it look like he did it under control. If that makes sense.
This is the thing, Bobby. They were up 35-3 on that play. That's a mentality, man. That's a mentality. I love it. I love the honorable mention. You're on fire tonight.
All right. Hey, we got a couple other questions coming in here. I'm going to get to those really quickly. We got about another 5 to 10 more minutes here before we guys let you go. I want to say thank you one last time to our sponsor. Flight is the next generation of light beer with only 95 calories. It's an upscale light beer designed to elevate the customer experience with more taste and just 4.2 carbs. Flight is an easy-to-drink beer with a crisp taste. Try Flight from Yuengling. Thanks to the fine folks at Flight and our friends at Faust Distributing for sponsoring the postgame from On Texas Football. I also want to say thank you to all of our game day sponsors from Flat Creek Estate Winery, South Point Dodge, our friends over at Hargrove Roofing. They came by today. I met Billy Hargrove.
Nice.
There's just a lot of guys out there that are helping us out, as well as Duck Camp gave away a $200 gift certificate today at our tailgate. So that was pretty nice of them as well. But I want to say thank you to all the game day sponsors, as well as our guys over at MyBookie as well. Guys, any final thoughts that y'all have about the game tonight? And perhaps as we look toward a Mississippi State team that has been getting scored on, but I tell you what, Mississippi State did today against Florida. They did establish the run. Do we think that Texas is going to be able to keep going with this same type of game plan where they're up by 14 or 21 points before we even get out of the first quarter? I mean, that's what's happening, right? This kind of reminds me of those OU teams that would be up on people 21-0 by the end of the first quarter, and then the rest of the game they're just trying to hold. They're just holding on. What do y'all think of this right now? And for the final thoughts from tonight, guys.
I think ultimately what Texas is doing is they're playing, and that's not even total complementary football. They're playing really good complementary football offensively and defensively. You talked about that earlier, but I think still when special teams starts making some of those game-changing, momentum, monopolizing plays, the ceiling is even higher for this team. So I'm with you. I think ultimately for Texas, because we're so close to it, I still think the ceiling is much higher for this team. I know they're the number one team in the country right now, but the ceiling still, like the pass rush still hasn't even, to me, shown its, the full strength of it yet. I still think the pass rush could use a lot of work, and I think it will improve exponentially by the end of the season. T. Hills mentioned the O-line. The O-line still hasn't been dominant yet, right? They haven't imposed their will totally. It's a team that's an O-line that wants to be a Joe Moore Award winner. So they want to be the best O-line in the country. So there's still a lot of improvement on the O-line, even though, of course, we know they're one of the best O-lines in the country. If you're going to look at special teams, talk about the momentum shifting plays on special teams, haven't had many of those yet, or any of those yet. The running back injuries have forced you to change your identity. Of course, you got the injury to your starting quarterback. The wide receiver roles, I still think, are being solidified, not totally there, because today we had Silas Bolden into the circle of trust. Hey, nice to see you, Silas. Come on in, all right? Everybody's eating up in here. So Silas Bolden is now added to the circle of trust. And so I just think there's so many areas where, and I said, they're really good, but I still think you can get a little bit of improvement. So I think that's where we are. You can beat a team by, 51-3 and still have a lot of things to coach this team up on. That just shows you the ceiling is extremely high for this group.
Absolutely.
I'm ready to reach that ceiling, Rod B. Tony Hills, what do you got for us, buddy?
Back in. Let's reach it in the back end, Bobby. That's the best time to get great, man. For me, defensively, what I want to see is the same thing that Rod wants to see, and it's just being selfish. But yeah, I want to see more sacks. I want to see more of those game-changing plays, right? But we're getting the turnovers in the secondary, which I said that once before. Is it possible that the thing that was the weak link of the team a year ago is now possibly the strength of the team this year? That is it possible to say that? And we're seeing that right now. They're on display week in and week out. We're taking the ball away more this year than we did last year, so that's great. But I definitely want to see some more sacks. I think that we can do a little bit better in the run game. There's times where we go into this lull where we give a couple of drives away. Now we do shore up towards the end. Hasn't been anything dangerous as of yet. But that's as of yet. So let's go ahead and just continue to establish dominance in that area as well. Offensively, I always got to start in the middle. So we got to clear up that leakiness. And to Rod's point, we talk about being dominant. One of the ways that we can be dominant is stop shooting ourselves in the foot with penalties, holding penalties and false starts, like these things that causes us to go backwards. And that's not what we want to do as an offense. From the receiver standpoint, man, I don't know, Rod. I think that it's just going to be receiver by committee. It's just going to be one of those seasons where, hey, this is Silas' game tonight. It's Golden's game tonight. It's Bond's game tonight, right? It's Helms. We've seen Helm jump into the mix, right? So I think it might be one of those things. And then ultimately, I know if I'm Sark and I'm looking at this team, the only thing that beats Texas is Texas. So being able to make here's something that's a different take than what we've talked about tonight. Let's continue to make the practices competitive. And let's continue to harp on the things as it pertains to situational football that's allowed us to win. Let's continue to focus on that red zone, right, every single week. Let's just continue to do the things that we're doing to be good in the areas that we're really good in, and then shore up the areas that we need to shore up. But at this particular point, and I know we're early in the season, right? We're only 4 games in. But, guys, really the only team that beats Texas, barring injury, of course, right, is Texas at this point, especially when you look at what's coming up next in the back half of the schedule. We thought, Bobby, when you and I talked, we said, OU and Georgia, that's what we're looking at, right? At this point, I don't even know if that's going to be the thing that happens for them. I think it's just really going to be Texas going out and executing every single week, taking it one day, one game, one play at a time.
Yeah, I worry about 2 things right now. Is that I think Georgia's a tough out for anybody.
Yeah,
I'll say that. I think A&M end of the year, that's just going to be a bloodbath. Whoever wins it. I mean, I really believe that. That's going to be one of those games. Of course, OU's always there. But I look at OU tonight, and they lost a couple of starters on defense.
it did.
The physicality of the SEC is getting ready to come.
Yeah.
And so that concerns me a little bit, because then your depth is really going to be tested. Yep. Like right now, your depth is showing out, but the depth hasn't necessarily been tested. There's a difference. And I think that's one of the things. My final thoughts for tonight, in the shadow of Arch Manning's debut at the University of Texas, Jaden Blue shine. Just tremendous night for him. And I also want to leave you with this thought as well. Travis Acton. I think the biggest surprise this year is how good our defense is at considering who we lost last year with Byron Murphy Tavondre Sweat, Jalen Ford, and how bad the pass defense was a year ago. You don't give up 3 points and lose games. So, what the most anybody scored in a game against Texas this year is 12 points. And
It's crazy.
Yeah, 4 games in, Longhorns 4-0. Just a tremendous performance again tonight for the Longhorns. I think that there are things, by the way, guys, that we can nitpick and talk about and should going into this week as they start get ready for their first conference game against Mississippi State. I totally think that that's fair. I think, Rod, you mentioned special teams. This is not a really good special teams team right now, like they were a year ago. They're just not. A lot of holding penalties, blocks in the back, those kind of things that are kind of mounting against them. That could come back to bite you in bigger games. But they're all in all, you just look at a 51-3 victory and go enjoy yourself tonight, guys. Watch the tower be lit orange. Get yourself some fun. You know what I mean? It's one of those guys. It really is. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks again to our friends over at Yingling and Flight, as well as Faust Distributing. Thank you all so much for sponsoring On Texas Football, the post-game show. Tony Hills, thank you very much for filling in for Brian Robeson. Brian was sick today. His team did win, by the way. His son's Little League team won 30-0.
Come on now.
Brian, he throws, he writes like he's not really caring about how many points they score. Y'all know Brian, he cares about how many points they give up. So when he puts his I shut out there, he seems a little more excited. But guys, thank y'all so much for joining us. Thanks to Matt Hutchison behind the scenes. Also, thank you to Jerry Hamilton and CJ Vogel, as well as Aaron Hogan and Coach Bob Shipley for all the coverage here today on Game Days. Longhorns 4-0. I get the feeling that when we turn on the TV tomorrow and the AP poll comes out, Texas Longhorns can stay number 1. Yep.
Damn right.
That's going to do it. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a good one. We'll be back with rapid reactions in the morning. Hook 'em.